Hello again and welcome back to PerditoRanchOK.com. I'm Tracy.
I'm Cordell.
Today is Sunday, September 15th, 2024. If this is your first time here or you're a regular viewer and you're enjoying our videos, then give us a thumbs up and follow or subscribe to our channel. Thursday, September 12th. Russian President Vladimir Putin made clear in a TV interview that if the U.S. and NATO allow Ukraine to begin using Western-supplied long-range missiles to hit interior Russia, that will be direct involvement by the United States, European countries, and NATO in war with Russia. He went on to point out that modern precision weapons from the collective West require satellites to hit targets, and Ukraine does not have any satellites. As such, Ukraine would have to be able to use U.S., EU/NATO satellites, and that is direct involvement in the conflict by NATO. More importantly, modern precision weapons of the collective West cannot be programmed by Ukraine troops. They don't know how. Because of the complexity, such target programming would have to be done by actual NATO troops, which is again direct involvement by NATO in the conflict. Putin finished by saying if NATO enters the conflict, that changes the entire essence of the conflict, and Russia would have to make decisions about that based on the new threats posed to it. Also, Chief Defense Minister Dong Jun publicly announced today that China will militarily support Russia if NATO attacks Russia.
Friday, September 13th, Russian leadership has issued a follow-up statement to President Vladimir Putin's Thursday brief video address warning that if the U.S. and UK authorize Ukraine to pursue long-range strikes on Russian soil, the NATO and the Russian Federation will be in an official state of war. On Friday, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenzia, informed the UN Security Council that NATO countries would start an open war in allowing Western long-range missiles to target Russia. If such a decision is made, that means NATO countries are starting an open war against Russia, Moscow's envoy introduced. In that case, we will obviously be forced to make certain decisions with all the attendant consequences for Western aggressors. The family of Russian ambassador Anatoly Antonov has reportedly left the United States and returned to Russia. The families of other senior diplomats from Russian embassy in Washington and its consulate in New York also reportedly departed the U.S. earlier this week. According to the sources familiar with Russian diplomatic operations here in the U.S., the remaining senior diplomats from Russia are now operating with skeleton staffing levels at both the embassy and the consulates.
September 14th, Russian ambassador to Washington, Anatoly Antonov, said today in a televised interview that there is some kind of illusion in the United States that war with Russia will not hit U.S. territory, making clear U.S. territory would be hit. Speaking from the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C., the ambassador's precise remarks are, quote, "We have said 100 times that there can be no nuclear war between nuclear states, especially between the United States and Russia, and there will be no winners. But there is some kind of illusion here that if there is a conflict, it will not spread to the territory of the United States of America. I am constantly trying to convey one thesis to them. The Americans will not be able to sit it out behind the waters of the ocean. This war will affect everyone. Therefore, we constantly say, do not play with this rhetoric." Unquote. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov remarked today, the United States has given Kiev all the carte blanche to strike with long-range weapons deep into Russian territory. Moscow's response to it will be brutal. He went on to say that there is an element of serious risk here because the opponents in Washington, London, and other places clearly underestimate the degree of danger of the game that they continue to play. Russian Foreign Ministry has responded to revelations the United States is seeking to deploy nuclear weapons in Japan. We plan to launch a comprehensive military intervention if American missiles are deployed to Japan, the Russian Foreign Ministry said. I want to point this out. These comments are from Russia's heads of state. Our media and most of the American people are not taking this seriously. These are not just idle threats from the man on the street. This is from their president. They're the equivalent to their speakers or our speakers of the House. These are high-ranking heads of state that are making these statements. So we better start taking them seriously.
September 15th, Houthis in Yemen fired a new ballistic missile at Israel, hitting a power plant near Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. The missile flew 1,800 kilometers, was airborne for 15 minutes, flew through Saudi airspace undetected, actively evaded Israeli jamming and other defenses, including fighter jets, and struck the power plant it was aimed at. The distance traveled and the time in the air indicate the missile was flying at an average of 7,200 kilometers per hour.
These new ballistic missiles, these hypersonic missiles that they're coming out with now, we really have no defense against them. Israel doesn't. Most of the Western countries don't. The only defense they have is still in development will be the lasers, that technology, but it's not fielded yet. We didn't do a Sunday update for the last 2 weeks because things have been kind of chaotic on the weekends. What we've decided to do is, if something big happens, we'll go ahead and do a video. Other than that, we're going to be doing other type of content, firearms related, prepping related, different things like that. So with that being said, as of tonight, if you haven't heard, it's 7:44, Sunday, September 15th. If you haven't heard, there has been a second attempt on President Trump's life. This one was far less successful than the last one. The Secret Service were able to actually intercept the guy before he was able to get any shots fired. So what we're hearing now on the news is he had a couple backpacks put up on a fence that had ballistic panels in them. Ballistic panels meaning they were bullet-resistant panels. It looked like he was going to be trying to shoot through in between them, and that would give him cover. A Secret Service agent that was actually one hole ahead of where Trump was playing saw the rifle and engaged the suspect. Now, we've heard that there were shots fired. We have heard there was no shots fired. Tomorrow, Monday, maybe it'll be more clear. We just don't know. But we've heard all kinds of things. We do know that the suspect is in custody. I haven't seen what his name is or anything about him yet. So, unless you've just totally missed the news, there has been a second attempt on Trump's life. So if something like that happens, we'll go ahead and make another video next week. If it's just been a quiet news week, we probably won't do anything. We'll probably put up some other kind of content. Like I said, we'll be doing everything from prepping to sighting and rifles, just stuff like that. Now, in the last video I made, I used the term battle rifle to describe a civilian AR-15, AK-47, something like that. It's not actually accurate. The last battle rifle that the U.S. military fielded before the one they're switching to now was actually the M14, which is a Springfield 308 box-fed rifle, and that was early Vietnam. Prior to that, the last real battle rifle was the M1 Garand. The thought process when I was in the military, from using the 5.56 or an M4 or an M16, was that it was designed, the 5.56 cartridge was designed to wound. If you wounded a soldier, it took 2 to 4 soldiers to carry him off the battlefield. So you had the potential of taking 5 soldiers out with one shot. However, we get in the Middle East where their concept of, they don't think as highly about human life as we do. So they'll leave you laying on the battlefield when you're wounded. So our military figured it out that the only way to stop them is to kill them, and you're going to need a much more powerful cartridge, a bigger diameter cartridge. The new rifle, I think it's
6.886 or something weird.
It's a .227 Sig Fury is what it is, but we've got a different nomenclature. I want to say it's a 6.8. It's not a 6.8 special, but I should have actually done a little more research on it before we started doing this. But they're switching to that, which is actually making it an actual battle rifle, which also means it's going to be select fire. The civilian AR-15s and AK-47s we have, they never end up on the battlefield. They're not select fire. It's just not something that the military uses. They're sporterized versions, semi-automatics, and everybody in our part of the country pretty much has an AR-15. If they don't have an AR, they got an AK, and they for sure have got a hunting rifle that's in a much larger caliber than those two. So
wasn't the 5.56 based off the 2.23?
Yeah, it was based. It's similar to it. There's only thousandths of an inch difference.
And the 2.23 is considered a varmint round, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, because it's a fairly flat shooting round.
Yeah.
So it was like I said, they took the 2.23, come up with the 5.56. A lot of people at first were worried about shooting 5.56 through 2.23 and 2.23 through 5.56. So I'll give you an example. The Ruger Mini 14. I had a guy I knew was terrified of shooting 5.56 through the 2.23. So I had called Ruger. This is some years back. And Ruger said no, that they had chambered their rounds, their Mini 14s, to be able to shoot either one of them. And it could take the differing pressures in it. One of the things you don't want to do, let's say with like an M1 Garand, is normally it's in a 30-06 caliber. Now I've got one that's in 308 too. If you use any bullet much larger than 168 grain, it won't take the pressures in the chamber and it could blow up on you. So you have to be careful with that. But as far as using the 5.56 and 2.23, they're pretty much interchangeable. Now you're going to have some precision rifles that are specifically chambered for 2.23 or for 5.56. That's when you're target shooting at 1,000 yards. That's where it comes into them, where the chambering length, the diameter, and all that stuff comes into play. But at those ranges, you're also having to take in curvature of the earth, wind, sunlight. Everything comes into making that shot. So if you live in the state of Oklahoma and are interested in concealed carry courses, then be sure to visit our website, PerdidoRanchOK.com, PerdidoRanchOK.com for information and scheduled class. While you're there, click on Emergency Food, and that will take you to Survival Food tabs for great tasting, nutritious, long-term survival food.
For firearms related items, click on magazines, gun parts, reloading, ammunition, or accessories, and that will take you to Brownells and Bravo Company USA, two of the top-notch suppliers of firearms related products in the U.S.
Thanks again for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe.